November. Over the years on this show, we've been speaking with Claire Mercer on her campaign to end smart motorways. Her husband Jason died on the M1 near Sheffield in June 2019 on a smart motorway, and today she heads down to London to continue her fight. Claire, thank you so much for coming on the show today. How are you feeling today?
I always get anxious before doing these things, and I always think, why have I done this? I've set myself up to fail again. But then every time I remember that there's not only me that feels this way, and there's always plenty of people that turn out. It gets plenty of attention, and that's what it's all about, making a lot of noise and basically shaming the government into action.
Tell us what you plan to do going down to London, what the day is going to be like.
We're literally going to doorstep the Department for Transport. It's not a massive crowd. I haven't tried to amass an army. There is literally a few people that are available from relevant positions, and we're going to try and shame the Department for Transport and or National Highways, because between them they can't agree who's responsible for releasing these reports. They're called POPE reports. It's post-operating performance evaluations. So it's actual reports on how smart motorways have actually functioned, not their projected function. Because I always get dismissed by National Highway saying, yeah, we're sorry they're killing people, but they knock 2 minutes off your journey, and they're at a boost to the economy. They phrase it a bit more professional than that, but but now these post-operating reports, post-opening reports, are showing that that's not the case. Because when there's an incident, I believe there's an incident right now in Barnsley, isn't there? You're just trapped. Because there's no hard shoulder for any of the trapped traffic or the emergency services to get through. So now when there's an incident, everybody is just trapped for hours. With my husband's incident, people were trapped for 8, 9, 10 hours. My husband was killed at 8:15 in the morning, and his body was not removed from the road till 5 p.m. at night.
Why was that?
They couldn't even get a coroner through. So good luck getting an ambulance through. So, they couldn't even get the coroner through to release the bodies, and you can't airdrop a coroner with body bags. So I'm sorry to be graphic, but that's the truth. And so, he was still there at 5 p.m. at night. And, it's so, how do you get an ambulance through to that? It's ridiculous. And so these post-opening reports show that it's not just dangerous, it's a drag to the economy. It's costing billions. So their business case has gone out the window. So they've produced these reports, but they're never getting published. They're just sitting in a cupboard for 2 and 3 years, and it's been spotted now. Chris Ames brought it to my attention. He's an industry journalist, independent journalist in the industry, and he brought it to my attention and said these reports just aren't getting published. So about 4 years ago, the government did this big announcement: we're going to do a stock take of smart motorways. We know you don't feel safe. They constantly say we don't feel safe, because it's gaslighting you. It's not that you aren't safe, you don't feel safe. We're going to do all these reports, we're going to do this, that and the other. And so they did the reports, but they're hiding them because they don't show what they want to show. And what they should be doing, obviously, is they've ignored us for 5 years. God knows how many people have died and been maimed in that time. And now they've got their reports, and they're just hiding them because they don't show what they want them to show.
Have you spoke with Keir Starmer at all, our Prime Minister, about this?
I can't even get the Transport Secretary to acknowledge me. We've had 6 Transport Secretaries in the 6 years that I've been campaigning, so you get no continuity. You have to start again at the beginning, and the only one that has ever acknowledged me was Grant Shapps, and he phoned me. I don't know how he got my mobile number one evening and effectively tried to bribe me to work with him. And I gave him time. I thought, listen to what he wanted me to go down to Parliament the next day and stand with him while he announced the results of the review. And he had 20 points the night before. Two went missing between then and the morning when they were announced. But he listed all 20 points to me, and I said, not one of them would have saved my husband. Why would I agree to this? You're just trying to buy me off. And I said, no, I'm not standing with you. So that went out the window.
And for those people that haven't heard your story, how did your husband die on the smart motorway?
He had a minor collision. It should have just been a bad start to the day. They were both fine at the start. There was just a dent in both vehicles, but because there was nowhere safe for them to pull over, and because it's your duty to stop after an incident, they ended up dead. Because you can see on the cameras that they travelled for quite a distance trying to find somewhere safe to stop, but they couldn't. So eventually they pulled over as far out of the lane as they could, but the crash barriers stopped them getting right out the lane, and then they couldn't get over the crash barrier because it's a 30-foot drop down onto Blackburn Road. So they weren't stood right in the road, but when a 40-ton truck doing 57 miles an hour smashed into their vehicles, it knocked it into them. They were actually killed by their own vehicles. So, a minor bump turned into an absolute catastrophe.
Ever since you've been campaigning in the past 6 years, has anything improved?
They scrapped all new smart motorways, which was a big thing, but why were we dealing with the ones that weren't in and killing us first? I've come from industry, I've come from engineering, and you deal with that thing now, and if you think it's an issue, you lock it off before you do anything, and then you investigate it. But we just keep saying we're going to investigate it, we're going to investigate. I actually announced on our social media the other night that we're going to do a review tattooed on me, because I've already got a few tattoos. So I just hear that all the time. We're going to do a review. We're going to do a review, and or one death on our road is too many. ... I just get the same replies every time. So the scrapping of new smart motorways was a big thing, but you don't deal with the things that aren't killing people yet. Deal with the things that are killing people first.
We've been in contact with people. We have to give their responses, and you can tell us what you think. Well, we've spoken to the Department for Transport, and they said that smart motorways remain our safest roads in terms of deaths or serious injuries. They say they've significantly invested in safety features, including rolling out over 150 more emergency areas on smart motorways.
I'll deal with the refuge areas first, because that's the easiest and quickest. Does your vehicle ever warn you when it's going to just stop? Are you going to be able to choose where you stop? You can't choose where you're going to stop. Vehicles break down, and the newer they are, the more likely they are to just stop, because they're computers, and when the computer glitches, it just stops. I get so many people contacting me saying my car's 3 months old and it just stopped, and they'll say, luckily I was on a B road, but it made me think, what if that had been a motorway? So you can't choose where you're going to break down or where you're going to have a problem. So refuge areas are no good. We need a refuge area that's continuous all the way along the motorway, a hard shoulder. The safest road metrics, first of all, stats. If you're stranded in a live lane, does stats matter at all to you? Well, you've got 40-ton trucks thundering past you. So, but then they're measuring the metrics of 300 miles of road against thousands of miles of road. Yes, there's less deaths on smart motorways because there's less smart motorway. Than they're measuring it against the whole strategic road network. So it's not prorated, basically. So it's not a fair comparison, and like I said, stats don't matter when you've got a 40-ton truck running past you.
We've got National Highways as well, who say they're doing everything to reduce deaths and serious injuries on the network. They say their latest analysis shows overall, again, smart motorways remain our safest roads. You don't believe that?
No,
if it's being compared?
No, I've read an awful lot of reports, hundreds. Every report is 180 pages, and I sit there and I read it. And when you actually, if I can understand it, you ask my maths teacher at school, I was not that bright. If I can understand it, then they're just willfully misinterpreting it. So the fact that they just keep quoting this, they're just not listening, and it's going to. This is why we're turning up on the doorstep today, because you just have to shame them that nobody takes action. The government do not take action before there's a problem. Horizon, Grenfell, blood scandal. They wait. They were warned and warned and warned and warned for years, decades, that there was problems, and so you just have to shame them. And I'm trying my hardest to carry on shaming them before there's a Grenfell of the roads, because it will happen, and it will be a coach full of school kids.
Tell us what you want to happen today and in the future.
I would like somebody to acknowledge me today, but what we've done today, we've done quite a few protests. We carried coffins through Westminster. That was a very impactful sight. We carried 38 coffins through Westminster because at that point only 38 people were confirmed as killed directly because of the lack of hard shoulder. But since then, with better analysis and the fact that we now know that the technology is not up to scratch, there's been cases where lanes aren't closed, so vehicles plough into other vehicles because the lane wasn't closed, because the operators are trying to close these lanes, but the system doesn't respond to them. I actually have the operators sobbing to me that it's so stressful that they're using broken tools in a very dangerous environment. So this today is about release these reports. Not, it's not the bigger picture, ban smart motorways. Today is about release these reports. But obviously, overall, I've only got one bullet point on my agenda, and that is the return of the hard shoulder on all motorways.
Claire, thank you for coming in, and ultimately I'm so sorry for your loss, and I really appreciate you taking the time, especially when you've got a long day ahead.
Yeah.
Do come in and update us when you can as well.
Yep, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Claire Mercer there. She's on her way to London today to call for the release of smart motorway documents that she says proves they should be scrapped.